Hello and good evening to all of you. Without any delay, I would like to welcome to our next panel discussion of GATO 2020 on how IoT can be the real MVP in the future of sports. Welcome to our panelists, Mr. Indrajeet Patil, CEO, Cereble Private Limited, Mr. Dev Chandan, CEO and founder SeeHow, Mr. Arminder Thind, founder StanceBeam, Mr. Pratik Saraogi, founder and CEO ActoFit Wearables. Over to you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Indrajeet Patil.
Yes. Thank you, Srishti. For the day is how IoT can be the real MVP in the future of sports. So to all the business people, MVP in this case is not minimum viable product. When it comes to sports, MVP is an abbreviation for the most valuable player. So talking about MVPs, we have an intelligent panel with us today. So how can IoT be the real MVP in the future of sports? Let's find out. I would like to start with Dev Chandan, the CEO and founder of SeeHow. So Dev, we have come across Internet of Things for industries, home automation, logistics, agriculture, etc. How do you think we can leverage the power of Internet of Things when it comes to sports?
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me on the panel to speak. I just want to give a quick intro about what we do. We are a sports technology company. At core, we are building a sports operating system. You can call it like Jarvis for sports and fitness to transform sports equipment into active sensors. So we employ proprietary algorithms for the sports equipment or wearables to provide feedback and on your performance that could be used by coaches and broadcasters. So we do cricket, we have done mixed martial arts and baseball. Coming back to your question, I think it has been a long time since companies around the world, be it healthcare, education, or even public sector, are migrating to becoming a technology or software company. And sports has, for the longest time, been underserved by this wave. IoT will play a big role in every aspect of sports, be it training, broadcasting, fan engagement. I think when it comes to sports coaching and training, the amount of data that you can get that is not otherwise available right now can be a huge transformation in which coaching has been delivered over the years. It could be a game changer for sports coaching, and I'm sure Arminder will agree on this. We would soon see something what has happened in the edtech space happening in the sports coaching space. Over the last decade, sports has been redefined by some of the accurate decision making when you see DRS in cricket, a lot of storytelling, and there's just this enormous amount of thrilling viewership. And there's a need to build the stories using data for the viewers and bring them closer to the game. So that in that way, IoT will play a huge role in doing so. And this is not something that's just starting immediately. I think for the last decade, wearables have sensors are nothing new in the sports and fitness industry. Wearables have pervaded our life. People are interested in tracking their physical lives, be it step tracking or sleep or whatever, right? And sports seems like a natural extension to all of that. So it's quite a right step in the right direction that we have been taking the last few years. Yeah.
Okay, that was quite insightful. Thank you. So we also have Pratik with us. Pratik, are you there?
Yes, Indrajeet, I'm here.
Yes, so Pratik is the founder and CEO of ActoFit Wearables. So just a general question, Pratik. When we talk about Internet of Things for sports, what kind of things are we talking about here? I mean, what goes inside? Like, what is the basic principle? What kind of things, and what is the underlying principle behind those?
Sure. So when you talk about Internet of Things in sports, it potentially covers everything right from player performance to fan engagement to broadcasting solutions, and a lot of players are already here in this space doing a lot of things in this area. Specifically, I think the kind of panel that we have today and the kind of things that we're discussing relate more to player performance. better recovery and improved performances by use of wearables or technology in the space of IoT for players and athletes. So that's where a lot of development and a lot of innovation has happened in the previous few years, where I mean, you're able to understand why Usain Bolt is faster than the rest of the other guys, where you're able to find out the minor data points and why someone would beat someone else, right? So that's where a lot of different sports, right, from football to cricket to running to tennis and badminton, there are a lot of variables that go into play, right from analyzing movements of the human body to the handling of a particular thing called the racket when it comes to play. Obviously, a lot of data points and metrics here formulate together to help a user understand or an athlete understand why they do what they do. Something that we've done in this space is we built badminton trackers and launched it with Star Sports with the PPL 2018. And with that, we were able to identify the short speed, short timing, and identification during badminton games. And while people use it during their coaching and their training purposes, it helps them realize and look at their past performances, compare it with other people, and understand how they can improve on certain aspects. That would ultimately be the difference between winning and losing. And then obviously a lot more is done by us on the fitness side, wherein every athlete or every user needs to be fit in order to compete at the highest levels of their performances. And and yeah, that's again like covered in the IoT of things here.
Good to know. So inside these things, like what actually goes when you talk about electronics and the cloud, like how do these things work, Pratik?
Sure. So these things normally have, what would you'd normally find in any microcontrollers or a PCB circuits or electronic boards that allows the communication via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or LTE as applicable for different devices. But the primary source of data collection is motion sensors in terms of what we use. Now, I think what a couple of other people might also use more, visual sensors or basically image processors, but we only focus on motion sensors, initial motion um, units, and out there we primarily derive all our data from accelerometers, gyroscopes, and magnetometers. So using the 9-axis, we are able to track a motion, a signature pattern, and classify and categorize that motion pattern as a particular motion pattern to mean a particular activity. That activity could be a short play. That activity could be a bicep curl or a repetition done. And the number of activities would basically mean the number of repetitions done. And at the same time, different spikes in those activity patterns would give us indications on whether this is done within a certain time frame, what's the range of motion, what's the time under tension, and various other metrics that we would equate to something that coaches or users will easily understand.
Okay. So do you have a lot of like machine learning and all going inside and analyzing the data and then providing analytics to the user? Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Absolutely. So a lot of this data is something that where a player can teach the system or the application in terms of how he plays a particular stroke or how he does a particular exercise, and that could be recalibrated, right? So while we do this over a large data set over masses, we are definitely bound to get it wrong by 10 to 20%. It will not work the same way as it does for me for someone else, and that's where calibration is very very important. And that's where machine learning comes in. It allows the platform to learn by itself based on edits that people are making to correct the results to eventually reach a level which is close to 95, 96% accurate.
Okay. So you're kind of using a combination of gyros and accelerometers along with magnetometer to are you kind of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So combination of the entire 9 axis, magnetometers is basically just for the directions, but gyroscopes is for the axis rotations and the deviation from that. And accelerators is basically for the distance or the displacement from one point to another. And all three of us, when put together, give us the motion either in the 3D space, and that's what allows us to calibrate it. Now, then there are certain motions that we are not able to calibrate or we don't know about, and that's where machine learning comes in to allow users to pick and match that themselves to allow the system to learn and pick it and improve it on itself.
Okay. So talking about machine learning, Arminder, you have a background in computer science, right?
Yep.
So my next question is for you. So when we talk about technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, and also stuff like augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. So all of these technologies in combination with IoT. So how can you use this, to improve sports training?
Yep. Thanks, Indrajeet. Before I answer a quick of what we do, so we at StanceBeam are a sports tech platform powered by IoT and AI. We are the pioneer in terms of launch of a consumer product, a bat sensor in the global market in partnership with Kookaburra. Shikhar is the backs the brand, and we are available in multiple playing nations across the globe. Current focus sport for us is cricket, and we plan to enable more sports with our tech in the near future. So, Indrajit, coming to your point, questions, right? So, see the way what a mix of all what you mentioned, right? IoT data, AI, with that, and AR, VR, right? I think this can completely revolutionize the whole aspect of the sports overall, but specific to your question in terms of sports training, right? So, just taking example of use cases, right? So, if we take example of a country like India. I myself coming from a rural background, right? Getting access to a academy and going somewhere, finding a place to play and a right coach to play is one of the biggest barrier for any player, or at least most of the player, right? And while the fun part, see, we indulge in sports games for the fun of it, being on the ground, going there, playing it, right? But when it comes to training, if you are really aspirational, you want to really excel in the sports, a lot happen off the ground as well. Like for cricket, they say 90% of your game is above the shoulder, right? It's all mind game. So you train yourself, you train your mind, you build your reflexes, you build your muscle memory, right? So you just take example for a kid, right? Same kid using AR, VR, IoT empowered sensor. If within his living room we can create an environment where he feels like playing in the best of the venues. Right, maybe in the Eden Garden environment, I'm playing against best of the ballers, taking example of cricket, right? And I'm practicing my shots there, right? And because this is IoT enabled, you can assess a lot about your technique as well, even within that environment, how well you are playing. Even playing in your living room, what was the potential of you scoring the runs? And within the different fielding situations, right? So it completely, one is on the training side, and then the fun part of sports, which we really love. Like every time, especially in COVID time, no one is able to go out and play. So you just being in my living room, I'm challenging my another friend who is somewhere else as well, right? And we are competing against each other. And then other big part of next is how AI ML, right? So see, IoT gives you a lot of data, but ultimately to get sense of that data, to make it more actionable, you need to have that intelligence. You need to have that predictiveness or more insights to the game. That's where, as Pratik was early mentioning, using ML, how we can see the trends, how we can see those trends and reflect for a player if you are on the right track, which are your weaker areas, and how you can improve. So it becomes also for a player kind of a Clavia model where I can train myself and also empower my coaches to give more information about me as a player so they can help me improve better, right? And take my game to the next level. Another aspect also with the technology is how it helps to pick the right talent. Right now, the way people, right, it's a country like India breaking the barrier and coming in playing for India team, or even for that matter state teams. It takes a lot. There's so much good talent in the hinterland, right? So how in future, if all these players have been playing, have their stats, if they are good players, right, they start trailing on the leaderboards, right, and get seen. Right now, it is if I scored a match, there is a selector, he picks me up, or I'm supported by a great coach, I can go to the next level, right? The next level we see is based on your data as well. You can get a chance to play at the highest level.
Okay, so you kind of have a combination of remote coaching along with IoT enabled hardware, a lot of data analytics and all. going into all of this, and in the end, helping the athlete to train. Have I got it
So
right?
that's the
Yeah.
so that's the vision we're working towards broadly. Like that will stitch the complete story. But as a tech product, you need to start somewhere. So currently, majority of it is IoT enabled with some VR aspects for you and a lot of predictive analytics that we are doing. But we will seeing the full potential will be when we are able to integrate all these pieces together over next couple of years.
And how do you see that virtual reality and stuff like augmented reality being implemented now with Microsoft HoloLens? Do you see these technologies being used in training?
Yeah, so I personally feel there is a lot of potential in that, as I shared with the example of how a self-learning training with the right kind of environments around me. So that definitely because we are focusing on training side. If you take the aspect of fan engagement as well, then it takes to the next level for the fan engagement as well with the AR, VR, how they feel themselves actually in the game, different viewpoints, how they see watch the game as fan as well, right? So that's a complete another aspect of the sports, right? Where actual the consumption happens, but being focused on the training side of it, participation. So personally believe as these technologies mature, it will really break that barrier of places to play and the coaches to play with. And if I'm a player who really wants to excel, I can leverage this to really improve my game.
Okay, good. So I have a question for Dave. So Dave, how is training with intelligent equipment like different from conventional training when it comes to athlete? So how is it different? And like what are the advantages?
So, I mean, the first and foremost thing I would say is there is nothing difference, no difference, because the user experience cannot change of how you use the product. So the feel of the product, how the process of training, how you train with the product, it cannot change. And that's one of the primary requirements of having an intelligent device on the cricket field or whatever. So, and that's something we take very seriously and go beyond even the training process to manufacture, where we try not to meddle around too much with traditional processes that are existing for a long time. Because sports in the end is like very aspirational, and pro athletes do not like something being changed, like the shifted by a few grams, right? It just messes with the way they bat and everything. So when we are fundamentally putting something inside the equipment, they just cannot know while they're training, and you cannot always have a third person like holding a speed gun or something uh, to be able to tell you, prompting every time that you pulled like 140 or you pulled at 127 is just not very healthy while training. So the best way is that you're not knowing what is happening, going out there, coming back, seeing your phone, just like browsing through, putting an Instagram story, you look at your data and you look at how you performed during the training. Now, how it adds value to the training is I would like to add on what already Arminder explained. First of all, training has been a bit ad hoc when it comes to sport. It has been very subjective. Adding a data point helps you firstly tell you how you did in a session, okay, and defines a sort of a baseline for you to improve over time. I'll give you an example. We work with a bowler who, for the past like 3 years, he had been averaging around 128 kilometers per hour, and without knowing what is wrong with him, he started using the ball, and he got the data, and then we did some. We have a background in machine learning. We did some analysis on which stage of his bowling actually is not performing to the fullest, and then he relayed the data to his coach in England, and within a matter of 6 weeks, he was clocking 137 regularly. In just 6 weeks, he went close to 10 kilometers per hour. which he hadn't been doing for a long time. So that's the kind of effect data can have, giving feedback and accelerating the process of improvement.
Okay.
The second thing is defining form. Today, if you're saying I'm a fast bowler, and you come and you just have a bad day at a selection, that doesn't mean that you do not, you're not fit to play, right? So it just gives you, it's very good to have 3 months of data over how you performed over time. It gives you that kind of confidence for people to select you in a team, or even tell you where things have gone wrong. Yeah. So these are the kind of things that.
Right. So you kind of get like a quick feedback and like a more actual feedback from the equipment itself. That is what you mean.
Yes, immediate actionable feedback on which you can improve, rather than this being very subjective. And you trying to just get a feel of what's happening. Numbers are much more easier to understand. Also, it also helps you to like, yeah, when you have a smart cricket bat and a smart cricket ball, let's say, it helps you actually capture the contest in the truest nature of the game, and that's where everything lies, right? So yeah.
So we actually have two companies over here. You're kind of like competitors, aren't you? When it comes to cricket.
I could see them complimenting.
We are complementary, actually. I would say.
That's it.
Otherwise, my
So
take
what
would be we are not a competitor. This being a new category altogether, we are kind of a category created together in this space.
Yeah.
They
okay.
already created that category 3 years ago now, Arminder.
So what we'll do is we'll continue talking for around 15 minutes and then we'll have like some questions from audience. So next question is for Pratik. Pratik, how do you see the Indian market space when it comes to sports automation? Like, how do you see the adoption of these kind of intelligent training, fitness equipment in the Indian market space?
Right. So I'll speak specifically from a fitness perspective because that's a mass market and that's what we try to adapt in India. To start off with, adaptation for this right at home devices or directly to home users is basically very difficult, as we've understood. There's a huge learning curve. Tech adaptation is not where I would say the rest of the world is right now with India definitely, and therefore a lot more coaches, trainers, instructors, academics have to get involved in this. So what we've done to really accelerate our growth here is we've tied up with 500 plus gyms in the country, out of which a lot of gyms basically use a lot of our technologies, right from intelligent coaching backed by data metrics from wearables, or through a group class environment where everyone's competing against each other in real time and their scorecards being visible at the same time, refreshing every second, and everyone going back with ranking leaderboards and the bragging rights on every. So that's something that's been successful for us, worked for us, and we've invested a lot in this space, getting this concept and this sort of structure out there. And eventually, we've seen like users and players come back and say that, hey, this has improved my performance. I didn't even realize that I had to work harder, but I ended up working harder just because there was so much motivation out here, and I've burned so many extra calories, or I've achieved the result that I wanted to, and they eventually create retention and engagement is what we see.
Okay. Fine. So, but as in, if you wanted to sell your products, say in the Indian market space or in the European Union, how would you treat the markets like
So
different?
yeah, so in the Indian market space, I mean, manpower is much more affordable, and that's where the coaches and trainers and gyms could sort of like help us and to really accelerate this and expand this, and also like be part of the journey where they are, running the clients and the users on how to use it, what it does, and what this data actually means. Whereas if I was in the European Union, I would probably just, invest heavily more into user manuals and online videos on how it works, what it does, how to make the best out of it. And although we have invested the same in India, we just don't see a lot of people actually watching that or using that. It's usually a phone call and the support teams basically explaining things in a very conventional and traditional manner. So that's the difference that I would imagine. I don't know for sure. I would imagine would be between the European Union and the Indian markets.
Okay, fine. Arminder, another question for you. So, from a developer's perspective, how is it different? Developing products for sports automation from a developer's point of view. What are the difficulties and challenges that one can face?
So see, one of the first core element which earlier Dave was also mentioning about his ball is it should be non-intrusive. For a sports person, anything we are trying to do with his equipment or overall his environment and the gameplay, right? We can't make much deviation. So we need to make sure it's non-intrusive. Like for taking our example of the bat sensor we have done. So what will be the form factor of what will be the weight of it? So it doesn't change the behavior of his training. So using a sensor embedded thing versus his normal, there shall be no change. Otherwise, when he use your equipment versus normal condition, the situations will change, right? So that's the key, one of the key element that is there. And also, there is a lot of talk around data, but in sports and for everyone, right, the consumption is the key. It's more important what is relevant for a player, because using these sensors, you can end up creating so many metrics, so many data points they throw. But for a game perspective, what is most relevant for the player, which will really help him or her improve his game, or for a coach, which gives them the extra vision to assess the performance of their players, right? Other than that, the key challenge I personally or overall we have seen is being a new category, right? The education aspect that we have to do is very tremendous. Doing product is easier part of it, but the education and the resistance that we get from the traditional style of coaching is huge. So that's another key challenge that we face in while we try to get the innovation in the sports.
Okay, and what are the challenges you see when it comes to remote coaching? Since what the situation is, so how do you think this can be adopted more by the Indian community?
Interestingly, in fact, the acceptance of the product has increased a lot during COVID time period, especially because it enables you to connect with the as well. So, a platform like this offers you a non-friction way. So earlier it used to be in terms of remote coaching. It was I record my video, share it with a coach, and coach will give me some aspects about my technique. With our tech, we enabled players to not just record your videos, but all your relevant data standpoints, and all this happens automatically, frictionlessly for a player, right? And then coach on top of it can give a review. So we had so many coaches partner from India, outside India, who became part of the platform, right, and have been helping the players tremendously. As I shared before, though the fun part of sport always is being on the ground, playing the balls, competing, right? But the serious characters being in the neck, trying, uh, building their muscle memory is very important. So we had so many of these players, right, even in the lockdown, who used it, and a lot of positive feedback. They said like it really helped them, right? So we have example of a 14-year kid in India training with a coach in Australia using StanceBeam. And once the lockdown was open, right, he said he went ahead and knocked a century. So he was so excited and shared this story with us. So yeah, so a lot of positives as well, how the people leverage technology.
Good. So how is Shekhar Dhawan as a person?
Wonderful. The great thing is the positivity, right, and his outlook for the sport, and especially for us being a tech-oriented product, he is very open-minded in terms of adopting the new innovations. Technology has been a great backer, motivator for us, and giving very specific inputs to us in terms of what needs to be done, how we can take product to the next level.
Fantastic. So my next question is to Dave again. Dave, when we talk about IoT in sports, and we know about traditional IoT when it comes to industries or home automation, so is there a difference in the architecture that goes inside the things, and how is it different?
There is quite a bit of difference actually, because what you can safely assume is that um, because most of these IoT devices that operate on some kind of radio, and mostly it's Bluetooth communicating with the phone. You can safely assume that there might not be Bluetooth connectivity all the time, and there might not be internet altogether. So to see some of this immediate data, firstly you need to um, be able to process everything on the device itself and send it. That's what we do actually. This process most of the stuff on the device itself and send it to the phone. Again, some kind of rudimentary machine learning has to be done on the phone, because there are so many infinite stuff that can happen on a sports field. And the later part where things come to actual feedback on a session, they can happen in the cloud, uh, um, by which you enable something like remote coaching or something like that, right? The second thing is the kind of data we deal with. It's the event window is very small, whether you're hitting a cricket ball, playing a racket, landing a punch, or bowling, right? It's within zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.7 seconds the action happens. And there's so many things that happen. The bowler runs, releases the ball, and everything, right? And to differentiate again uh, the fundamental architecture should be able to difference between what is noise and what is information.
Okay.
So that is one thing, and yeah, so those are the primary things that a lot of competition at the edge as compared to the traditional IoT applications, I would say. Yeah.
Good. So basically, when you have like all these sorts of devices and electronics, and they're communicating with each other on Bluetooth or BLE, so how do they basically, when you talk about your cell phone and connecting to different devices, how many number of devices can you actually connect to it? And suppose you have say more than one device, how do you solve that problem?
So,
When
so our current system can go up to 10 devices. There are 10 sensors. So we have done an entire night session where there are 4 bowlers and 2 batsmen, and the batsmen both have the players. That's the max we have gone. We have done boxing bout where 2 players are punching each other. They have 4 sets of sensors, 2 pairs of gloves. The more important thing is correlating all the data on one single timeline so that you can capture what is the contest in sport, that is timing or reaction, whether you're fighting or you're hitting a ball, or you're hitting a tennis racket shot, right? Yeah, so everything has to be on the same timeline, even though the connectivity cannot be on all the time, but the clock has to synchronize everything when the data comes. Yeah.
So now we will take a few questions from the audience. I can already see a few questions coming up. So one question I think we have is, I don't know, anyone of you can answer. Can IoT be really used in judging and umpiring in sports? Pratik?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably the other two panelists can answer this better, but absolutely, you got the hotspot, and you basically have a communication angle with the umpires based on an LTE or such. Sure, why not, right? And same with FIFA. You have a lot of real-time decisions that need to be made in football, and yeah, a motion-based system capturing a lot of activities and then relaying that back to the headsets of a soccer referee. I don't know. Maybe if the others want to add some thoughts onto this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So interestingly, I started SeeHow with developing a AR application for a Google Glass, which was called a Gully DRS. So it was essentially an umpiring application to tell you whether the ball is hitting the stumps or not. As we moved along the journey, we put something inside the cricket ball. Now, without the use of camera, we can tell you where the ball landed using a lot of prior data. So there you go. There itself, we are able to tell you what the ball is going to do, what the ball has done. So kind of giving with the same experience that you see on the television at a much cheaper cost. Yeah.
Yeah, other use cases which you already seen, like a no ball detection system, or ultra edge is already there, but that's predominantly used at the elite sport level, right? So how we can bring in the grassroots level umpiring as well. So in our case, sensor on the bat, even minor snicks can be detected, those finer edges, right? So that can be a use case. These kind of sensors on the arm, there are a lot been a questions, right? Illegal balling action, chucking. So how you can detect those in the live game as well. So these are the some of the use cases come to my mind, and I think a lot of these can be solved using IoT sensor data, AI, ML on top of it, and give far more accurate results for umpires to make more informed decisions or become a extra kind of AI for them.
Okay. There's an interesting question which any of you can answer. So, how is the role of IoT evolving in the domain engagement?
So I missed a part. Indrajeet, can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, yeah. How is the role of IoT evolving in the domain of fan engagement when it comes to sport?
Okay, yeah. So I'll just give one example based on what we do, like how this cricket is a game of numbers, right? So what really a bad speed and a angle of launch can get you a six or a four, right? So these are the we just see that happening, but what really a batsman did with his bat to make that happen. And me as a fan of the sport or as a aspirational player who is following a player, I can learn more from about their technique from the data standpoint, numbers as well. If he's such a good clean hit player, his timing is so good, or how he swings his bat, right? So all these things can be learned with more data points. As I watch the game, I see these numbers, and we already see those kind of things happening. Like Pratik mentioned, done an integration for badminton as well in broadcasting. We are seeing similar use cases for cricket as well. So this is happening across the sports for more from a fan engagement standpoint as well.
Okay, so we'll have like last two questions now. There's another interesting question. Technology is great, but how do you create retention and engagement when it comes to motivation amongst your athletes to keep coming back? So how do you engage your audience? That is what the guy is trying to like. How do you want an athlete to come back to how do you retain your crowd?
Sure. So we've done a lot of work here. A lot of points are converted into gamification angles and into leaderboards, and people can compare their scorecards with one another, sort of become part of a system. We also provide rewards to a lot of users who are naturally featuring in the top 10 or top 3, and every participant sort of also gets some digital reward, which is basically free to the company but has some innate value to the end user. Fitness should be rewarding. So that's basically something that worked well for us. And I'm sure, as my other panelists will agree, if you're giving out results, if you're giving out improvements, nothing speaks louder than actions out there.
Yeah. So I believe in that ultimately it boils down to what exact the problem your TG is facing and how you are solving. And for us here players, right? So that can be a minor small thing as well, which really like or add value or remove a friction. Like for example, I give you one small case. Like we implemented this auto video detection mechanism for our players beyond data, and they a lot of coaches and players love just the fact like we do auto videos for them, so they don't need to go through the whole session. For example, if they're playing in nets for 1 hour, their action time is around 2-3 minutes only when they're exactly playing the ball, and we just give them highlight videos. They love this fact, and our most of the engagements are around the videos. So this is like we figured out this is what players love. This is already what they are using, but they have friction, so we remove that, and they love this.
Okay, there's another question. So when it comes to IoT, we can see that from advertisers' point of view, customizing brand message and finding the right target audience fit is a challenge. So can IoT help in solving this by gathering data on fan behavior and help increase the revenue for sports organization? I mean, in advertisement. So gathering data of fan behavior is helping the advertisers. So can you use IoT for that?
I mean, I'll give you the example of something like about mixed martial arts, where the fan is always hooked onto the commentary because there is not much information coming from the. If you're just listening out on mute, you do not know who is winning or whatever, right? And the people, what broadcasters are actually looking at is some sort of heartbeat data and some sort of data about fatigue or that develops over time while you're placing that playing that match, and thereby engaging. Let's say like maybe I don't know if I'm going off track, but like a smartwatch company or companies that do let's say health monitoring to look at the data and probably address that kind of for sure, like the heart rate data when it comes to any kind of combat sports is very critical, and that's a data point that we have got that fans are interested in seeing. So probably brands can do leverage on that.
Okay, so there are a lot of questions on batteries and how are they being used in these IoT devices. So what I'd recommend is the profiles of all of these speakers is available on the website. You can search them on LinkedIn and reach them out personally, as in what goes inside, and if you want to learn more about the technology that goes inside. And let me see if there are any other questions. Yeah. How does companies ensure cybersecurity safety while using the data? So is it relevant? I'm not sure. Yeah. So any comments on the data? Yeah, data security.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like Bluetooth or any kind of Wi-Fi, any kind of radio, there is one layer of security by pairing or by password that you provide. What we also do is we go another step further where the data, the device is actually locked to your phone. So your phone generates one-time key. There, I mean, it can happen on the field that I am bowling with the ball, and Arminder happens to pass by, connects his app, and takes my data and shows. So I fold at 140. Okay. So that can perfectly happen, and that has happened in the initial days. So we have done some sort of security stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So what you mean is like yeah, even in all the architectures, you have like end-to-end encryption, just like WhatsApp, right?
Yes.
From to the cloud, and everything is connected, and you have everything.
Yeah, it's basically between your phone and the device. Nobody else can connect to that. Even though you have the pairing key, the passport nobody can connect because we generate an encrypted key on top of that, so that it's not like a headphones. Like anybody can you can connect to multiple devices. The ball just connects to your phone. That's all. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Arminder, you have to say something, 1 or 2 sentences max, and conclude.
So, yeah, beyond, I think they've already mentioned just IoT layer, how we manage security. That's pretty much from security, but beyond data being collected at the app level that goes to the cloud. So all the security protocols that need to have right at the API level, cloud level. So have to follow that because these are some of the latest player as well using it. Every player is using it. So being very stringent in terms of the data privacy of an individual player.
Okay. So IoT for sure is going to play a huge role when it comes to sports. Thank you everyone for joining. Srishti, you can take over.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you, speakers, for such an amazing session. Thank you to all the delegates and all our partners. Stay tuned for many more insightful sessions lined up for you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.